a good day to brew, baby. What is up, you bitch boy Millzy, our hometown commander, and we are back for another episode of Millzy Brews, more specifically Millzy Updates, the show where I update an old deck list for you. Last week on the channel, if you guys checked it out, I did a brew for Brimaz, the new Brimaz, the commander of the white-black growing threat precon. And I said I really enjoyed that deck, but really honestly, it made me just want to come back to Vishgraz, a commander that we've covered once or twice on the channel already from Phyrexian 1, a deck that I've been brewing around behind the scenes and really enjoying. And I said that Brimaz taught me a lot of lessons that I wanted to bring over to Vishgraz. So today, because I've already seen a couple people ask for it in the comment section, today is going to be my update to Vishgraz. On the original list, you could see it back on the videos that have been previously released on the channel. It was very combo based. It was an ETB deck where we're trying to just blink Vishgraz a bunch of times to get more of our might tokens and use them to get toxic counters on our opponents. I don't think it's a bad strategy for a deck, but what I think Brimaz taught me the most for this deck was that all we need to do is get one counter on our opponents, and then we can just proliferate. And there's so many great cards in these color combinations that proliferate. So much of this Phyrexian engine is built to get poison counters on our opponents and proliferate. So I thought, why not keep a small amount of that combo, the Nim's Deathmantle, Ashnod's Altar, Vishgraz combo to get all the mites. We could still do that, and we have some aristocrats in here because we can rely on that as a secondary engine. But what a lot of the deck is doing now is it's taking that blink engine and pushing it back and really bringing in proliferate. So if you want to see the deck list, it's going to be down in the description. If you want to get, just see it, if you're not interested in going into nitty gritty, what I'm going to do now is go into it nitty gritty. If you're interested in seeing some of the color, some of the combinations and what some of the combos are on the deck, and how I built the deck to work, and then, enjoy it, I guess. This is a deck that, to be honest, the last time I played it, which was when I had the original list, it was a deck that I had a ton of fun with, but the problem was I felt like I could never get this blink strategy to work. It always felt like you were missing a piece, and then I ended up just relying on cards like Contaminant Grafter or Bloated Contaminator to just end the game by hitting my opponent and proliferating, once or twice in a turn to finish them out with poison counters. And so as I was dealing with Brimaz, I thought, wow, so we can actually just end the game by proliferating, right? Like, we don't even need to go through all of the other mess with as much of the blinking, because the blinking still helps me with the one thing I want to do, which is dumping creatures onto the battlefield and making them shine. So what I did here is try to build, again, like I said, the deck into a lot more proliferation, keeping that ETB, but also that. So the land base has stayed pretty much the same as it was before. Inkmoth Necklace becomes really important here because we can turn it into a 1/1 with Infect, start getting some poison counters on our opponents. Everything else is pretty much different. Glimmer Void's a card I've used for a while in these artifact type decks because you get great value off of it. And then we get to bring in something like Path of Ancestry a little bit more now, because most of the deck is Phyrexian creatures. If actually think about it, I think every creature in the deck is Phyrexian. So Path of Ancestry really helps. We eliminated some of the problems that I had with, where is it? That new Phyrexian land, the Seed Core. I noticed the Seed Core was doing good work for me, but was also not in the old list. So here, all of my creatures are Phyrexian. So all of my creatures are going to benefit from the Seed Core. This helps a ton. Getting up into the enchantments. So like I said, we shifted around a little bit. And the one big thing I realized that I wasn't taking advantage of was a card like Druid's Repository. So whenever a creature we control attacks, we put a charge counter on it, and you can remove a charge counter on it to add a mana of any color. This kind of style I think is really good because those mites we want to be attacking with anyway. We don't care if they get blocked, right? We'll get the mana out of it. So that's great. Cryptolith, right? Again, tap those mites for mana. This is great. This is exactly what we want to do. We can use those mite tokens to our benefit. Of course, Concordant Crossroads is going to help us out by, if we have a big turn and we're drawing a bunch of cards, can help us cap off and attack with our creatures. We're still playing the Skruv's Hive. We're still playing the Intangible Virtue. We're still playing this tokens thing. We have the Parallel Lives and the Doubling Season for that. But the couple cards I added was something like Etchings of the Chosen. So when it comes in, now we can say Phyrexian because all of our creatures are going to be Phyrexian. They all get +1/+1, and then we can pay one sacrifice creature of the chosen type, and target creature you control gains indestructible. So we can sacrifice one of those little mites, give Vishgraz or one of our important creatures indestructible, and now it's going to survive some board wipes. Or if they're going to wipe our entire board, if we have enough mana, sacrifice a couple creatures, give a couple things indestructible, and the rest of the board is gone. Bastion of Remembrance, it comes in as one of our aristocrat pieces, and it's in there to help us out. I had really considered Meathook Massacre and Agent of the Iron Throne as well. They were two cards that felt like they really fit this aristocrat theme, but just like last time when we talked about Vishgraz, I feel like we need to see, is the aristocrat strategy enough that's going to work for us? Because a lot of my sacrifice-based effects in the deck, which we'll get to as we get up top, is sacrifice, proliferate, or Brimaz, right? If a creature died this turn, proliferate. A lot of them are based on like, oh, do this and then proliferate. Like right here, the Throne of Geth, sacrifice an artifact, proliferate. Okay, well that's sacrifice a might token, proliferate, right? We're not doing as much of the just sacrifice everything to Phyrexian altar, make a ton of mana, and nuke a bunch of people with aristocrat triggers. But again, I think it's worth in the future. We are playing a Lost El Core, which does something very similar. Whenever a creature you control dies, each opponent loses a life. So we are still playing some of these aristocrat payoffs. But I think the one last thing I need to figure out with this deck is how much those aristocrat payoffs there, and can we completely pay them off by adding up more things? Put back in Phyrexian, because I think the Infect is going to help us with our goal. Put this on something, get it in, get the counter starting on an opponent so we can proliferate them out. Still love something like, still love the Mirari's Wake and the Sylvan Library. They did such a good job. Mirari's Wake can double up that mana, get us even further in our strategy. All right, getting up into the artifacts, we still have our combo, Nim's Deathmantle and Ashnod's Altar. So the way that works is you attach Nim Deathmantle to Vishgraz. You're going to sacrifice Vishgraz, and you're going to sacrifice one of our mites and Vishgraz to Ashnod's Altar to make 4 colorless mana. Nim's Deathmantle is going to see Vishgraz leave the battlefield and say, hey, you can pay 4 to bring it back. We're going to pay the 4 that we just generated, bring Vishgraz back, get 3 more mites. Now we're up 3 mites. We'll need 1 more to keep the combo going, so we'll always be up 2 mites, and basically we're going to do this as many times as we want to. We can take this, and with something like a Lasso Core out, we can just do this enough to drain our opponents out. We can do this to just net a ton of mana if we wanted to, right? With something like Ashnod's Altar or even a Phyrexian Altar out, we can just use those extra mites for mana and use that mana for other things. This is a fun combination. It's not too hard to find, and we are playing Steel Shaper's Gift and Open the Armory to find Nim's Deathmantle. We also can use them for Skull Clamp, there's a couple, or Helm of the Host if we want to go that route, if we want to have some fun. So those 2 are in here mainly for Nim's Deathmantle, but there are multiple choices for that. If we already draw the Nim's Deathmantle, it's not dead. There's still Skull Clamp and Helm of the Host, which both come in their own right. Astral Cornucopia as a card, now that we're caring about that proliferate, seems really good because we can put it down for whatever we want. And then every turn we proliferate, or when we proliferate, this gets better and better at having for more and more mana. Still love Glistening Sphere in the deck. It's going to be easier to get to Corrupted now, so we're going to get more mana out of it. And then that Throne of Geth, just tap, sacrifice an artifact, proliferate, sack a treasure, sack a might, right? Because they're Phyrexian mites now. We can sack an Incubate token. Incubate has come into the deck now that we have access to some of these other proliferate cards. So we have 3 different ways to sack artifacts to Throne of Geth. And so Throne of Geth becomes a really great choice in the deck for proliferating our opponents to 10 poison counters. Instance, I don't think changed very much. Of course, Clever Concealment protects the board pretty well. Flawless Maneuver, Teferi's Pro for the protection. Deadly Relic, Assassin Trophy, Anguished on making swords for the removal. In the E and the Vampiric Tutor for some search. E-Tutor can get you the Ashnod's Altar if you need it. It can get you any of these enchantments. E-Tutor is great in this deck because it can kind of take the hand you already have and find you that piece to slot in to keep the deck moving. For sorceries, lots of ramp. Farseek, Nature's Lore, Ramp and Growth, 3 visits. Playing the D-Tutor and the Diabolic Intent. D-Tutor, of course, just unconditional search. Diabolic Intent, we're going to have a lot of creatures anyway, so we can sack one of them to go get something. Try for the Open the Armory and the Steel Shaper's Gift to go get the things we want. The other cool part about Open the Armory is it can go get an aura, so we can go get like Phyrexian if we needed it. Not as common, but it is an option in case we needed to do that. Phyrexian Outbreak's a card I really enjoy. Each opponent gets poison counter, so this can be a great way to start this poison counter train, and then each creature our opponents control get -1/-1 for each poison counter that its controller has. This could potentially be a massive board wipe, depending on how many poison counters our opponents have, or it could just wipe out a bunch of tokens. I think there's definitely different sides to it. And then, of course, we're playing a Phyrexian deck. We have to play Triumph. Triumph is just, at the end of the day, just going to help us in the game. If not, it could get us into the threshold we need to just proliferate once or twice and end the game as well. So I really like the Triumph, and it does a great job at finishing the game out. Just one Planeswalker, We're playing that Vraska. I like it because the 0 just ends up being a +1 if you think about it. You draw a card and you lose a life, proliferate, so it gets one back, but it's going to proliferate all the poison counters. So that's great. -2 can turn any creature into a treasure. This can hurt our opponent's things, or this can help our things, which is great. And -9 just says if target player has fewer than 9 poison counters, they gain a number of poison counters equal to the difference. The best part about this with Vorinclex or Doubling Season, this will just nuke someone. Even giving them the 9, both Vorinclex and Doubling Season, this is a one-shot on anyone that we pick it. So that's nice, but the one thing I like about Vorinclex and Doubling Season for this is they're just going to get them anyway. Proliferating, they're going to get double the counters. Toxic, they're going to get double the counters. Infect, they're going to get double the counters. This is just going to help us get to the threshold we already need, which is that 10 on everybody. My hope is that with this new list that we see us getting a little bit more versatile with how we get them to 10, as opposed to before where it was just those toxic might tokens. Okay, well, let's go through all the creatures because, again, we're a little bit more targeted now. We're a little bit more focused on what we want to do. Bloated Contaminator, whenever it deals combat damage to a player, we proliferate. Well, that's great because when we hit one player, we get to proliferate all players. So this is great because it has Toxic 1, so it can start the poison counter train. Really, it's just going to proliferate anyone. We want to use as many of these proliferate effects as we can. Bloated Processor says whenever we can sacrifice another Phyrexian to put a counter on a Bloated Processor. Whenever it dies, we incubate X, where X is at power. This is in here. A pair of things like Colossal Core or something like Brimaz that says at the beginning of each end step, if Phyrexian died under your control this turn, proliferate. Well, this is great because we can every turn, even our opponent's turn, we sack a little might or a little incubator token to Bloated Processor. Give it the counter, something died, Brimaz, proliferate. So this is kind of one of the little sub-strategies we're trying to lean into for the proliferate as well. So Bloated Processor is great, and then it incubates when it dies, which is great. Brimaz is another kind of mini commander in the deck now that we've seen what the deck can do on its own, giving us those incubate tokens anytime we cast a Phyrexian creature or artifact creature spell, which is every creature in our deck's Phyrexian, so it's going to go off of all of them. Incubate, and we can flip the incubate tokens over and make them creatures as well, or we can keep them as artifacts and sacrifice them for different effects. Contaminant Grafter. Over one or more creatures you control deal combat damage to one or more players, proliferate. It's worded that way so that it's not once per player, it's once per combat. That's there to stop you from proliferating 3 or 4 times in a turn, which would be terrible. If you think about it that way, you could potentially end a game in one combat if this wasn't capped. 3 people proliferate 3 times with the Doubling Season or a Vorinclex. That's no 6 poison counters in one go that you could potentially really hurt people with. And then beginning your end step, if an opponent's corrupted, just get to put a land down and draw a card. That's great. It's pretty helpful. And this has Toxic 1, so it can also start that Toxic train on an opponent. A Lasso Core is basically in here for its second ability, but we also get a life whenever our creature we control games in. So that could potentially help us gain some life back with our Vishgraz combo. But the best part about this is with our Vishgraz combo, we will drain all our opponents out. So this kind of fits a dual cast mold. This will help with a bunch of other things. If all of our mites attack and they get blocked and die, a Lasso Core does damage because they died. So you could see that a Lasso Core is kind of almost a better copy of a Aristocrat Outlet because it's Phyrexian anyway, and it has that upside. It was really tough to not include all 3 Elish Nordens because I think all 3 of them work so well in this deck. But the one I did want to include more than anything else was the new Elish Norden. Whenever source an opponent controls deals damage to you or a permanent you control, that source controller loses 2 life unless they pay 1. So if we attack with 20 mites, and somebody and all our opponents block all 20 of them, could be potentially 40 life, and then they have 20 mana. This is going to, if Elish Norden's out and this train is moving, this is something that's going to force our opponents to think about, hey, do I block or do I just take the 1 or do I take the Toxic? My hope is that more often than not they take the Toxic, but hey, that's a fun problem our opponents now have to deal with among everything else that's going on. And then for 3 mana, sacrifice 3 other creatures. We get it onto the backside. The backside is bonkers for a deck like this. First off, we incubate 2 5 times, then transform all other incubator tokens we control. So no matter how many incubator tokens we have, they all get transformed. Then creatures you control got +1/+1 and gain double strike on a turn. So this is going to potentially hurt our opponents. And remember, Toxic is a combat damage trigger, which means with double strike, Toxic will go through twice. Same thing with Infect. Infect would go through twice. So that's killer. And then the 3, destroy all other permanents except for artifacts, lands, or Phyrexians. Well, that's most of our deck. Except our enchantments, maybe. But I think we're okay with that. I think if we're at the point where this number 3 is going off, we're probably going to nuke the entire board and then just swing in for game, right? So Love the backside, and the 3/5 is not bad. A 3/5 vigilance on itself. We're playing Mommy, and again, Mommy was in the deck beforehand. 4/7, doubling all of our ETBs, stopping our opponent's ETBs. I like this because we do have a couple ETB effects, just mainly Vishgraz and a couple other small ones. But I think more often than not, this is just going to double Vishgraz's effect and may allow us to have some more fun with its combo. The two I can think of that really become effective with Alice Norn is Essence of Orthodoxy. Whenever it or another Phyrexian enters the battlefield under control, we incubate two. Well, this is a good double with Alice Norn. And then Norn's Choirmaster. Remember, our opponent, whenever a commander we control enters the battlefield or attacks, proliferate. So with poison counters on our opponents and Norn's Choirmaster out, if we get into the Vishgraz combo, we will actually just proliferate out our opponents with that. But with Alice Norn, we would be able to do it quicker or help out that way. So that's the other thing I really like about Norn's Choirmaster is it kind of fits into this combo, aiding and helping us out. Glissa, Herald of Predation, is probably the only creature in the deck I'm not entirely sure about. I like it. I think it's a fun card, but it's really only good for its ability. It says, beginning of combat, we choose one, we either incubate two twice, transform all incubator tokens we control, or Phyrexian control gain first strike and death touch. I think that's the most important ability. And again, I'm not super sold on this Glissa, but I wanted to try it because it's a new card. It's a Phyrexian. It makes the incubator tokens, which we already care about, but it also can just give all of our mites first strike and death touch. So if we're attacking with a full board of mites, now our opponent has to deal with all these mites that have first strike and death touch. Igarat's just a great way to get a poison counter on everybody. Love it because that helps us with our Proliferate train. Mondrak, doubling up those tokens that come in. Necrogen Rot Priest is a card I loved playing with the first time around, and it gets even better this time. Whenever a creature we control with combat, toxic deals combat damage to a player, that player gets an additional poison counter, and then we can give a creature with toxic death touch until end of turn with its ability. But a lot of our main creatures have toxic, so what that's going to do is give our opponents an additional poison counter, and with Doubling Season, Vorinclex, all that out, just it gets it even worse for our opponents. And then now we have less that we need to proliferate on the back end. Phyrexian Censor seems like a perfect card for this. Each player can't cast more than one non-Phyrexian spell each turn. Yes, that hits us too, but a lot of our creatures are Phyrexians, so I think that helps us out a ton. And then non-Phyrexian creatures into the battlefield tap, so this should have all our opponents' creatures come in tapped, give us more room to attack, more reason to push through. Skittles, got a reprint, and now that we really care about the poison counters more, I think Skittles becomes even more important in the deck. In fact, 4/4 flyer, it can get haste for a black and regenerate for 2 black. This I expect to do a lot of work in a deck like this. You get it down, you give it haste, get the counters on somebody. And now we can leverage this to start spreading counters around and helping getting our opponents into that danger zone. The best part about having Infect is it becomes a terrible creature to block, because if our opponent blocks with a flyer that's bigger than it, now that flyer is always or now permanently reduced in power and toughness because of the -1/-1 counters. But we hope that this gets through and hits damage to our opponents to give them that poison counter. Skrelv protects a lot of our things. Little toxic 1/1, but it can protect, give us hexproof, and can't be blocked by colors. This is just going to help things like Skittles and Tyrannix Rex really hit in on the opponents that we want. Those are big attackers. They're going to do a lot of damage. They're really going to help that kind of get through. Tyrannix Rex, Trample, Toxic 4, Ward 4, Haste. That Toxic 4 is going to hurt because as long as it hits a point of damage into the opponent, it gets the toxic off, and so Tyrannix Rex is another great attacker for us. And then Vorinclex, doubling all the counters we would put on a permanent or player and having the amount that an opponent would put on a permanent or player. Vorinclex is great. It's not a cheap card by any means, but it does so much for a deck like this because Doubling Season can be hard to find, but Vorinclex could be easy to find. We are playing that copy. We are playing a couple tutors, so it could be more advantageous that we get Vorinclex and give it infect or bring it down and give it toxic or something like that. Like, I think Vorinclex isn't just for its counters. It's a 6/6 beater that's going to be tough to block as well, but it comes in immediately, puts our opponents on blast, and they have to now worry about those poison counters too. But what do you guys think? Do you like this version of Vishgraz better? Let me know down in the comments. I think I do. I think this probably rounds the deck out a little bit more. It takes real advantage of all this new Phyrexian stuff they've been playing with and really brings it in to what makes the deck really good. I have a lot of stuff in the considering board in this deck. This is a deck, I always have stuff in the considering board in these decks. When you look at the deck link, this is a deck that was really hard to cut cards from. There's so many great Phyrexians in this set. Things like Massacre Worm, Grafted Butcher seems great, giving all of our Phyrexians menace the turn it comes in. You get down to things like Tainted Strike, which I just had to cut because I didn't think I had room for it. Panharmonicon, kind of got replaced by Alish Norn, but Necrogen Communion giving Toxic. We talked about the Meat Hook as a aristocrat payoff. Sword of Truth and Justice for the Proliferate. There's so many great cards here in the considering boards. If there's cards where you're like, man, why didn't you include this? Check out this considering board, because honestly, you could probably make arguments for 5 or 10 of those cards coming in to replace any one card. And that's what I like about a deck like this, is it gives you time to test it, really find what you like, kind of turn the knobs, right? Kind of turn the knobs on some cards and see, hey, where does this fit? Where doesn't it fit? And really enjoy it. But let me guys know what you guys think down in the comments. Like the video if you like Vishgraz, if you like Phyrexians, if you like proliferating. Subscribe to the channel if you want to see some more content. Probably won't do any more updates on Vishgraz too soon. This was just catalyst because of Brimaz. I don't expect to see anything in the next 2 sets that's going to make me want to update Vishgraz at all. I will put a comment down, or I will put a link down in the description to my personal Vishgraz deck list on my own Mox Field. That will actually change, as each set comes out and as I test it. So if you want to see kind of where I'm turning the knobs, where I'm figuring it out, I'm going to leave that down in the description for you. But thank you guys so much for watching, and I will catch you next time.